Ed Robertson, and this is the Mountain and Prairie Podcast, where I introduce you to some of the innovative and creative individuals who are helping to shape the future of the American West. I meet most of these people through my work in ranch brokerage and land conservation, or through my hobbies and interests that revolve around spending time up high in the mountains. My guests include ranchers, writers, entrepreneurs, conservationists, athletes, artists, pretty much anyone who's doing important work and has an interesting story to tell. My guest today is Duke Beardsley. Duke was well on his way to a career in medicine when, just before med school, he took a hard turn onto a new path when he decided to pursue art as a full-time vocation. Since then, he's become one of the West's most revered artists, producing paintings of cowboys, anglers, and the Western way of life in a style that is uniquely his own. His work is big, bold, and completely original, and it continues to grow and evolve in ways that surprise even Duke himself. Thanks to a childhood spent between Denver and his family's eastern Colorado ranch, Duke has been immersed in cowboy culture for as long as he can remember. He's been drawing nonstop since he could hold a crayon, and as a child, sometimes to the dismay of his parents, he demonstrated a proclivity for sketching Western scenes on the walls of his family's home. Duke is also a committed conservationist with a deep devotion to preserving the West landscapes and heritage. This eclectic mix of experiences and interests, combined with a formal art education, allows Duke to produce works that are ambitious, inspiring, and engaging. I stopped by Duke's Denver studio earlier this week where we had a fun and wide-ranging conversation. We chatted about his decision to change his career goal from medicine to art and the value he gleaned from a formal art education. He explains that lifelong obsession with drawing on walls, and he tells us some great stories about how, even as an adult, that drawing on walls has led to surprising professional opportunities. We talk about his artistic process, his meditation practice, and how he manages his extroverted personality in the solitary world of creating art. He also discusses why land conservation is an issue so near and dear to his heart, and he offers up some excellent book recommendations. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate Duke inviting me into his studio. Be sure to check out the episode notes for links to everything we discuss, and check out Duke on Instagram, Facebook, and on his website. Thanks a lot. Here's Duke Beardsley.
When you meet somebody for the first time and they ask you, what do you do, as people like to ask, how do you answer that?
That's a good question. I think lately I've just told them I paint cowboys.
Yeah. But you do a lot more than that, too. I mean, cowboys is overarching theme, but what else do you paint?
I mean, I think, yeah, you're right. Cowboys is kind of the umbrella, but I try to paint an energy and maybe through the icon of the cowboy, a spirit of a West that I grew up in and that I'm familiar with and that I still see day to day. I don't paint Charlie Russell's West,
Mm-hmm.
I try to paint mine here and now.
So I think probably the best way to start is where you did grow up, because I know your family has been in the West forever. So where did you grow up?
Right here in Denver.
In Denver.
I did.
And your family had a ranch out east, is that right?
Southeast corner of Douglas County.
Got it.
Literally the southeast corner. And then a little bit of Elbert County. Little cow-calf operation. My grandfather purchased the ranch, I think about the year I was born. And then he and my dad and uncle and aunt, and they were all from the Springs. They ran a little cow-calf and hay operation. And it was kind of what everyone did on the weekends. Everyone had a day job in town. And that's an old Western model I think I've discovered, where, people had a life in town and a ranch outside of town.
Sure.
That goes back certainly to my great-grandfather in our family.
So where did your six generations, where did the folks come from that ended up settling here?
Predominantly the East. I mean, as far as I know, the Beardsley crew moved here with the railroad from Wisconsin primarily. And first generation here were miners and then pretty gradually or pretty quickly became merchants and business people and bankers and that kind of stuff. Mom's family, again from the East, came west with the railroad company, ended up in Pueblo, and had a lumber company, the Newton Lumber Company, that pretty quickly expanded to the Springs and Denver, and then Denver became the headquarters. And then the subsequent generations did all kinds of stuff.
Got it. And so obviously the West is in your blood. Has art been in your family's blood, or is anybody in your family really artistic? Where did this come from?
Well, a lot of artistic energy in my family, for sure. Nobody was foolish enough to go try to do this for a living. But both my parents in their own rights were very artistic. Mom's real musical, and Dad had an amazing eye. But no, I think I'm the only one who's really gone this route.
And so somebody gave me some inside info that people have known you were going to be an artist since you're about 2 years old, when they walked into your bedroom and you had drawn a mural all over the side of the
the mural was a little later. I think I was maybe 11.
But the wall has been a preferred canvas for quite a while.
It has been. It might suggest how I ended up painting so large. But yeah, I started drawing really, really young. It's just kind of how I processed the world, I think. Mm-hmm. And most of this is family tale, but I know from a fact I've used drawing as my preferred method for downloading my life since I was really little.
Got it.
And it's always been very representational. The things that I saw went in, came back out my hand.
Got it.
Just my way of trying to understand it all.
So have you always thought you wanted to be a professional artist?
No.
Or, really?
No, I kind of, I was trying to go to medical school.
Were you really?
College, yeah. And that was a great experience.
Uh-huh.
But it was hard. And not just because the work was hard, but I slowly but surely came to the conclusion that science isn't my passion. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, I was in a position to be able to heed that call and step away and not have to go on to medical school.
So how far along that path had you gone?
Well, I didn't study. I wasn't a pre-med in college, so I had to go back and do a post-bac.
Oh, so you were in that process.
So I went back, and I was at the Claremont Colleges in California,
uh-huh.
and they had a program, and I was about 3/4 of the way through it.
Wow.
When I woke up in a cold sweat. And for the first time in my life, just like, what am I doing?
Had you questioned it before that?
The medical track?
Yeah.
No, I'd really just kind of, I was an EMT here for a couple of years. I was on the ski patrol and steamboat, and I got my EMT, and I really liked the interaction with people.
Yeah.
Loved it. And that's what set me down that path. And then pretty quickly got there and realized how important science is to that.
Sure.
And then I spent a spring break with a family friend here, a physician of local renown. And here he was in the golden years of his career, and clearly science was still something that pushed his buttons.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what I realized it wasn't what I wanted to do.
What did your family think of that when you decided to make that transition?
I mean, of starting it or leaving it?
Leaving it.
Oh, I think most people, and I definitely throw my family in with this too, we're very supportive. You know, I think my dad, understandably, we had a lot of urgency, like, you're not getting any younger, you know,
Sure.
What are you doing? But everyone was real supportive. And luckily, right as I left that medical track, a really great family friend here in Colorado who had been to school in California where I ended up in art school, he said, do me a favor and just, before you leave, go look at the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
Got it.
So I did, and I walked through the door, and pow, that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
It was just kind of like you were swimming downstream at that point. It just started flowing.
I had just never seen anything like it,
Uh-huh.
and I felt immediately intrigued and wanted to be there from the minute I walked in the front door.
That's got it. I'm
then-
sure that was a relief.
Well, it was exciting. It happened so fast. I mean, I conned my way in, and I quite literally went from a pre-med track that blew up in early summer, and I was in art school in late summer.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of a whirlwind.
And so how long was that, the art school? How long did that?
I mean, it's a full 4-year curriculum.
Okay.
So it was a second bachelor's degree for me. I have a bachelor's in art history from Middlebury College.
Yep.
But I had to get a BFA in order to try to get an MFA, which I didn't think I was going to do. But
Yeah.
It was a 4-year track that I did straight through in 2.5 years. I didn't need any of the academics.
Got it.
I had all that done from Middlebury. But it was still 8 full semesters of fine art.
So what would you say was the biggest thing you learned from art school? Because I've talked to some folks who are artists that learned a ton in art school. It sounds like it really got them going, and it kind of primed the pump.
Yeah.
And then some people say, I didn't learn anything in art school.
Yeah.
And so what was it, like if you could boil it down to a few lessons that you took away from art school, what would it be?
Well, on the technical side, they taught me to paint. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a painter at all before that.
You're a drawer.
I love to draw. Drawing had always been my preferred medium. But the painting I'd done was largely experimental, watercolor. I had really not spent much time with oil at all. So technically, they really taught me to paint. Okay. In the bigger sense, I think the thing Art Center taught me the most was how to work your ass off.
Yeah.
And it was never, college was great, but it was hard for me. It's not how I was oriented to be academic that way. Art Center, it was never a thought. Mm-hmm. I just hit the ground. The kids around me were full of energy and talented. And we busted 24/7 until they let me out. And that was a great experience. And they had some incredible teachers who knew how to work hard and understood, art doesn't just happen. You bust your ass.
Yeah.
That was probably the best lesson.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is one of the top automotive design schools in the world. And automotive design, how does that relate to me wanting to learn to paint cowboys? Well, I didn't go in it to learn to paint cowboys. I just went to learn how to make art.
Yeah.
And the energy level was so intense. It was great.
Did it give you a level of confidence? I went to grad school as well, and it's completely different. It was in business, but it was when I got out, all of a sudden, when I'd hear somebody talking in business lingo or investment banking lingo, whatever, I understood it.
Yeah.
And it just gave me this level of confidence that there's no secrets here. There's no magic formula. It's just something you need to learn. Was it like that for you?
Yeah. In a lot of respects, that's exactly what it was like. I mean, one thing I learned at art school is that anyone can learn to draw or paint, technically. Really? It's an applied science. Now, you may not be Rembrandt.
Sure.
But anyone can learn to draw or paint. It's like learning. I could learn to play the piano. I may not be very good at it, but technically I could learn to do it. That was a good experience. But also, I think, I stepped out with a level of understanding and confidence, even though I didn't know what I was going to go do. That I learned to really trust my hand. I think I always had as a kid and as a young adult.
Yeah.
But it's one of the great things that happened to me at school is someone actually referred to me as the horse guy. And I was kind of like looking over my shoulder like, you talking about me? Because I was so blown away by the talent around me. And a lot of these kids were younger. I was 25 when I went to art school. Oh, wow. So there were like 18 and 19-year-old kids there who drew like Michelangelo. I was so intimidated and blown away. And someone said to me, what do you mean? And I thought, what do they mean by that? I'm the horse guy. And someone said, it was a kid a year ahead of me. I didn't even know him very well. And he said, you know what you want to do. Look what happens when you give yourself 5 minutes to do your own thing. He said, I bet every time you close your eyes, that's what you see. And since then, I've done a series of these crazy kind of lineups riders, renamed every time I close my eyes.
Really?
And I think that's one of the other great things Art Center gave me was this has always been in me. I just hadn't really heard the call yet.
It's cool that you learned that from another student, because I remember when I was applying to grad school, somebody said, you're going to learn as much or more from the other students as you do from the teachers.
Absolutely.
And so it's cool to hear that that's the same case there.
Totally. I mean, the kids that I was surrounded by were maybe the best part of art school.
Sure.
I mean, my roommate, Brown Cannon, is one of the finest photographers out there. And a classmate of mine, Christian Alsman, is now a senior art director for Industrial Light and Magic. He designed BB-8.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really? I mean, this is the caliber of these kids I was running around with. And you're either going to freak out and run, panicked, or you're going to get so fired up. And even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do it well.
That's really cool.
That was the best part about art school, just the caliber. And the teachers, holy cow.
Yeah. Some
of the best practicing artists on the planet in whatever their discipline is. They were taking time out to teach at Art Center. And, what an amazing opportunity.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And so when you got out and you're like, all right, here we go. Yeah. I'm going to be a pro artist.
Is that what I said?
Is that what you said?
No.
So when you got out, what was the deal?
Well, I had to come home and see about a girl.
That's a common theme as well, I hear from folks.
I think I was probably career-wise hearing the siren's call of the entertainment industry. A lot of my roommates, classmates, friends were going that route.
Yeah, I guess being there in California.
Yeah, you can't help it. Yeah, and some amazing opportunities, right? A lot of the kids knew that's what they wanted to do when they started.
Sure.
But I had met this great girl, and she was here. She's from here. And then simultaneously, a gallery from Denver and a wonderful woman who had a long history in Denver with a great gallery had seen some work that I'd sent to my high school alumni art show, just on a whim, right? And they'd been really well received. She called me the night of the opening and said, "Hey, when you get out of school, I have a gallery. Let's do a show."
Oh, cool.
And that was it. Those are the two reasons I came home.
Got it. And so what did your art look like now? Look like then. I've got obviously we're sitting here in your studio and I see all your stuff online, but how is it different than it is now?
Well, in some respects, it was probably a little more innocently charged. Mm-hmm. I had this skill set I'd been taught at school, and then I had another skill set that I'd kind of been working on my whole life. And so I was trying to mash them together.
And what was the one you've been working on your whole life? Like, how would you describe it? Drawing.
Yeah. And my drawing style is very loose and very quick. I've got a super short attention span, so my drawing reflects that. Uh-huh. And I was learning to embrace that, and I was learning to see. I think I spent enough time in the academic side of art, learning to do things properly. Uh-huh. That one of the great things they said to all of us at school when we left was, now forget everything we just taught you and go do this on your own and do it your way and do it well and get paid to do it. Yeah. And that's a pretty amazing parting message. So I think I was really learning to trust what I'd already done and taught myself, mm-hmm. but then I was trying to infuse it in paint. And I really spent more time focusing on plein air landscape painting.
Yep.
I kind of thought that's what I wanted to do. And it took me a long time to realize that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I said, I didn't really set out to be a cowboy painter. Mm-hmm. But I'd learned to trust the curiosity and follow the energy where it took me. And next thing I know, I'm at a ranch of a family of friends, some people we'd been buying horses for years, for buying horses from them for years. And I'm at one of their brandings, and this material is just like pouring on top of me. I couldn't draw fast enough. I started shooting pictures because it just, asking those guys to hold still is impossible.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Working cowboys and cowgirls. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think my stuff was pretty. It was real new, it was full of energy, but it was pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Color was just starting to make its way in. I was doing a lot of work in black and white.
I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but that when you're coming out of school, they've been driving these fundamentals in, yeah. And I would think it would take a while to break out of that, kind of the standard way of doing things, or the way that they instructed you to do things, and follow that advice of forget everything and go with it.
It might have taken longer than I thought. It didn't feel like it.
Really?
I was, as much as I loved all the stuff we did at school, I was so delighted to be freed from the model drawing workshops every day, that, to go out and be around a subject that I was inherently connected to, yep. Of working cowboys and ranch work, and be stimulated to make that into imagery. I think my first show, we put up 40 pieces.
Wow!
And I did them all in the space of like 4 months. Just flew. It was just crazy.
Well, it gets back to that work ethic.
No thing, just paint.
Yeah, going hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're sitting in here, and I'm looking at one that's in progress, and it looks to be about, 10 feet tall?
Yeah.
So talk to me about the big paintings, because that seems to be a theme, and it goes back to your...
Starts with drawing on the wall.
Yeah,
right?
Tell me that story. Somebody told me I need to ask you that.
I think I was about 11, and we had just started, but I think my dad and uncle had built a roping arena at the ranch for team roping, and I was a little young yet as far as roping was concerned. I think when they let us rope, like if we caught something, we weren't allowed to dally. We had to drop the rope. Yeah. But we were learning to pace cattle and do all that kind of stuff, and I was just in it, right? And the Western subject had been hammered home. I grew up with an IV, a Russell and Remington in my arm, big time. Do you want me to stop those guys?
Oh no, I think got that's cool.
You can let him in, Della, if you want. It was just big, right? And here we were doing all this stuff at the ranch, and I was watching everybody rope, and I was doing what I was allowed to do. And I don't know where I got the idea, and I know my brother had been a big piece of it because he was the editor. We basically moved a bed over against one wall in my bedroom, and Mom and Dad were gone on purpose. They're gone, let's do this. And I remember vividly Woody standing in the doorway and kind of editing, and I drew a team roping scene on my wall. It was probably about 6 feet high and 8 feet wide. And it was just, the header had made his catch and dialed. He was just turning the steer, and the heeler was coming in for his heel shot. And I was pleased with it. It had never done anything like it. It's just pencil on a drywall. But then I remember my parents coming in and kind of going, "Whoa, we should probably be pissed, but that's pretty cool." So. But scale, I like to joke around. The West's a big place.
Yeah.
But more importantly to me, when you get to be intimate with working cowboys and cowgirls, and particularly for my interest, working cow horses, when you're right there, either on their back or on the ground under them, the energy's incredible. Even quietly well done at a big working ranch, there's just a big, big energy to it. And I think slowly but surely over the last handful of years, I've discovered that as I paint bigger, I feel that energy.
Interesting.
And, at this scale, that's life size or larger, right? Much larger in this case.
Oh, yeah.
It's something to put somebody up under a painting of a horse and give them that feeling that, wow, this is really right. This is really right what it's like to be there in person.
Yeah.
So
that's so talk to me about you got the cowboys lined up across the back, kind of in a grid formation, and I'll put pictures of some of this stuff on the website so people can see it.
Yeah.
But where did you get the idea for that? I mean, it's kind of
those lineups.
Yeah,
the really original name I used.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect.
The lineup riders came as a result. Actually, unbeknownst to me, they were gelling. But in 2007, I had 2 paintings selected to go in a group exhibition to China as part of the build-up for the Olympics.
Okay.
And it was a group out of Washington, D.C., put on a great show. And there were maybe 75 artists, contemporary working Western artists in the show. And they invited us all to go. And, of course, Tammy and I jumped at the chance. Tammy's that girl, by the way. Okay. She's just my wife. We've been married forever, 2 kids, yeah. But she, we just couldn't pass up the opportunity to go to China and see this. So we had this incredible experience. The opening was at the National Gallery in Beijing. Full-on red carpet, red velvet ropes, TV crews, and, a bunch of dignitaries, the U.S. ambassador, the head of the Ministry of Culture in China. I mean, it was a big deal. And me in a pair of Wranglers, give me a break. What a clown. But it was really cool. And one of the great things, there weren't very many artists who could go. In fact, I think there were just 2 of us. We had these kind of VIP accesses. Mm-hmm. And Tam and I took advantage of that and traveled a little bit while we were there. And in so many cases, we were exposed to these contemporary Chinese artists, and at that time, the contemporary Chinese art scene was exploding globally, and we met a lot of, unbeknownst to us, really important, famous artists who were working in repeated icons, and they meant so many different things. But what kind of boiled down to, in my limited understanding, was this repeated iconography could say so much about being one amongst the billions in China, and I kept. That was just rattling around. It was like a pebble in a can. I could not ignore it.
Sure.
And I came home and was thinking, what have we got? What have I got? What is it about this repetition that's so interesting and important? And why does it keep coming back to me? Mm-hmm. And I opened my sketchbook from the night the night before we left. We had dinner with friends who'd been, and there was this doodle of a lineup of riders. So I just started playing with it, and it kind of took on the shape that it currently has, and I thought I'd get to do it for a couple weeks, to be honest.
Sure.
And it's been 8 or 9 years, 10 years.
Yeah, it's really, really unique. Like you've probably heard me say to some of the other artists I've spoken to, like I'm not artistic at all, but I think I do have an appreciation for it, or certain stuff catches my eye, and it's just such a unique look that I've never seen anything like it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because originality isn't the only thing, but it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
And I've been trying really hard to ask myself, what do these mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm totally comfortable saying that I don't know yet.
That's probably why you keep doing it.
Exactly.
Figure it out.
I've started playing around with scale and overlap and transparency. I've been painting them on collage. And recently, in the last 2 years, I've been then allowing the big working icons and the lineups to kind of coexist. Mm-hmm. And that's been an amazing challenge, because often I don't really know what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I'm just letting it happen, or not even thinking, I'm just doing it. And the very first time I did one of these, where you're going to have a big working cowboy icon over the top of the lineups, I was painting the top row of lineups, and I was on a ladder, and I had to move the ladder over, climb back up to do the left side, and suddenly looked over and realized that I had no physical memory, having been 6 feet away like 5 minutes ago.
Wow.
None. Like it wasn't me. It was something going on its own.
Sure.
And that was a cool, amazing feeling.
Yeah.
And it was right about the same time I came to the conclusion that if I can just not think and be quiet, even for a nanosecond, these will tell you what they need.
No,
that's the coolest thing.
Well, you think about any of these sports, like I see you got a surfboard up there, and I think of surfing and rock climbing are sports that I love them because every now and then you get to this point where you're not thinking. You're 100% in the moment.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing where, Buddhist monks will meditate for years on end to try to achieve that.
Yeah.
And you can achieve it surfing, and it sounds like you're able to achieve it through art as well, which is pretty cool, and I'm jealous.
I had not realized that I could achieve anything like that, and I certainly not as a surfer. I was a very bad surfer. That's just a reminder of California. But like so many things, this can happen better the less I'm involved, is what I've learned. Which sounds maybe a little pretentious, but
no, I don't think so. That makes perfect sense to me.
It's incredible, and you hear about it, the zone, all these things.
Flow state.
You give these things a chance and they'll tell you what they need and they'll tell you what they want, and that's why I work on so many things at once.
Well, that's what I was just getting ready to ask you. Like, how many of these things are you working on at once?
Too many to count.
You don't keep track of it.
No, I mean technically all the canvases over there with paint on them are in progress. Now I'm not looking at them all, but at all the time, but I will be. And I like to have 10 to 20 things going at once, not counting little things that I'm starting or things that I'm finishing, because I'll often find myself working on A without thinking about A because I'm actually catching glimpses of B over my shoulder.
Interesting.
And sometimes at the pivotal time of painting A, the answer to B shows up.
So how do you know when you're finished?
Yeah. I don't know. Keep it simple, right? Deadlines help. Deadlines help a lot. I think any artist will tell you can work something to death.
I would think
Right.
it could possibly drive you crazy if you hadn't figured out some sort of method for knowing.
I trust my gut. I trust my hand. I know when something's overdone, and I've been in it this long enough that I'm learning to really understand. Like, okay, we're getting close to it being right where it wants to be. But you could keep going on just about anything.
Definitely.
So it's nice to be able to say, I can't. It's done. It's got to go.
So how much of your projects are things you're working on and they'll go to a gallery and sell, and how much are commission pieces? Like somebody orders it up and you do have a specific deadline?
Well, I only work with one gallery anymore, at the moment at least.
And which one is that?
It's Altamira Fine Art in Jackson Hole.
Okay.
And they've got a satellite gallery in Scottsdale.
Got it.
They're great. Their director, Mark Tarrant, is a really good friend of mine. I mean, that sounds silly, but we've become really good friends, and I really trust him. And his people are amazing. And gallery, that's a tough business, right? And they take a big commission.
Sure.
And I don't want to be cynical or jaded about it, but for me, it's important that you really have a good relationship with those people. And I've had a lot of great relationships with galleries, but right now it's working well to have just one, and the rest, everything we do is right here.
Okay.
It's all done in-house. There's a big list on the dry erase board over there, a bunch of names. Those are all commissions.
Got it.
And sorry, someone's really trying to get all of us. So I would say 80% of what I do is commission or in anticipation of needing the work here in the studio.
Okay.
Because I guess arguably I'm my first point of sale.
Yeah.
And but I endeavor to make sure that Altamira has some at all times of the best work I'm doing.
So when somebody commissions a work, and this shows my ignorance of your world, but when somebody commissions a work, how much instruction or feedback do you ask for? I mean, because I've noticed on your website there's some, and the color scheme fits perfectly with the color scheme of a room in their house.
Yeah.
So do they give you feedback like that or requests, and then you work around that?
They do. They can. I actually really try hard to make the commission experience really special for the client. I'm very comfortable painting in front of people, and so I invite them in to the studio at any point. I'm very comfortable with people's input. I mean, when it's all said and done, they got to live with this painting, right? And not with me.
Yeah.
So my first goal is that every time they see this painting, for however long they have it, is that they remember it as a great experience. So I kind of invite it, and I don't. Most of my commissions are pretty simple. Someone comes along and says, "Hey, we saw a painting at such and such a place, or so and so's house. We loved it, and we want one for ours. Or we have a place in our mountain house, or we have a place at our ranch, whatever it is that they're after." And they've had some idea what I do. They've seen some examples, and they have some colors and maybe a size in mind. And that's really how they start.
Okay.
And then we just build on it from there.
Got it.
Now, of course, I'm doing the work. It's mine to do. And occasionally I lose sight of that, but not very often. Most of the time the commissions are really fun, and I hope a great experience for the client.
Yeah, being able to come in and see it being painted, that's pretty unique.
I love it. I really do. And we've had some crazy experiences. I had a woman come in and request to be blindfolded, literally.
Really?
Until she told me to put her in the perfect place. I'm like, well, where's that? And so I kind of guessed, and the painting was up on the easel, and she burst into tears, and I thought, oh no, what have I done? But she was just that moved, And then what I hadn't realized is that the West, she was new to the West, and the West had always been this thing she'd grown up kind of appreciating. Her dad was a big fan, and that kind of thing, and so she'd really built something up in her mind, and I guess we hit it right on the head because it really moved her. But you never know what's driving somebody. And I love that energy back to me is informing how I paint what it is I'm painting.
Would you say you're an extrovert or introvert?
I'm probably an extroverted introvert. No, I'm real comfortable with people.
It seems, just talking, it seems like you're extroverted, but people think I'm extroverted. I'm a hardcore introvert.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering how you balance that, because this is an introverted business.
It is.
You're in here, and so how do you balance that love, getting energy from being around people, with having to come in here by yourself and just kind of be in your own head?
I think it's just that word, like you said, a balance. Let's face it, there's a big chunk of what gets done in here that requires that I'm in here alone.
Sure.
With a brush in my hand, and I'm learning still to appreciate that and to honor it and to do right by it. And I admire the hell out of a lot of my friends and artists, obviously before me, who have mastered that, just the discipline of being alone. One of the ways I've chosen to kind of bridge that gap between the extrovert and the introvert is to have people here who work with me, who are really becoming essential and invaluable. My assistant Virginia is an amazing artist in her own right, and she runs my printing press, and she preps all my canvases.
Runs a table saw.
She runs a table saw. She can weld. She's a rock star. But also, what I've learned, and I mean, what an amazing gift that she's given to me, is that her eye for my work, as it's being made, has become invaluable. I mean, when she tells me she's leaving to go do something better, I'm in trouble. But then now we've got Della, who runs pretty much the front office. Yeah. She manages the studio, and it's amazing how much of this business is that.
Sure.
Talking to people, emailing people, setting things up, scheduling things, and it's like a bunch of full-time jobs. So one of the ways I've kind of figured this out is to have these people here. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to be, nor can they be, for me and the work here 24/7. But we're getting into a pretty great rhythm of group energy.
Sure.
That I never would have told you I would have. I mean, I'm not a collaborative artist. I would have told you, no way. I work alone. But I am increasingly collaborative for their energy, their eye for what I'm doing. Their trust and their appreciation for what I'm doing means so much. The fact that they're willing to be a part of this circus, it's really great. So that's part of the way to get through that. And inviting people in too.
Sure.
I know a lot of painters are super careful with their studio and protective, and knowing everyone comes in. I couldn't be more opposite. We got kids through here, and dogs, and clients, and friends, and I like it that way. Keeps the energy up and running.
Well, speaking of you're talking about the discipline. What does your day look like? How do you approach? Are you the type that shows up in here every day at 8 a.m. and gets to work, or is it more loose, kind of work when you're inspired, or kind of a combination of the two? Kind
of a combination of the two. I mean, I have learned the hard way that one does not wait for inspiration. What was it Mark Twain said? That you go hunt it with a club. Yeah. I think that was Mark Twain. But I've been doing this too long, and I'm too old to just work when you're inspired. This is not how this works.
Yeah.
And a lot of great things come out of frustrating sweat. Mm-hmm. So, but my days are not typical, and they're not always routine. But the closest to a routine actually starts quite early. It's not uncommon for me to be in here at 4 a.m.
Really?
4:30 in the morning. I don't sleep anyway, so why fight it?
Sure.
A great morning is to come in here low light, maybe even a little low music. Dogs will settle down and fall asleep on the floor, and then just sit with a cup of coffee and watch, and don't just shush. Mm-hmm. It's almost meditative. I do meditate.
Do you really?
But that's a separate practice. This time early in the morning in here is really about letting the paintings take over. And they'll do it. It's the coolest damn thing. They'll just start showing you. And some of them I've been wondering about for weeks, and then you kind of have an aha. There it is. Uh-huh. Thank you. Glad you showed up. And I love that. I'm just learning to trust that. I mean, this is like 2 years old at best.
Wow.
So my days in here, I like to joke around. If I'm not in here, I should be.
Sure.
And, I've got people who count on me, not just my family, but now these people who help me do this. So I try to work all the time. But I can knock off, and I got a horse in town and go for a ride.
Well, you just were fishing earlier this week.
Go fish when I can. I mean, it is my time.
And I'm sure that fuels the art, getting out, getting out there and doing it.
Yeah. Is Tammy listening? I have to go do this. Yes. It's vital.
Yes, 100%. The whole operation comes to a
requirement. Yeah. But it's true. Those things are essential. Especially, well, both of them. Riding for me has always been a passion. Mm-hmm. I just clicked with horses. I was terrified of them as a little boy. And, watching my dad and grandfather and uncle work cattle horseback, like, both stimulated me and terrified me to no end. And then when I was, 12 or 13 and expected to kind of pull your weight and do your own thing, it took a lot of okay, sure, you're going to be okay. Get up on this big old horse and go out and do all this stuff. But it made a big dent in the putty, and it never did recover. So riding still, when I paint horses and cowboys and cowgirls working, I think I love it when people say, boy, you sure get that right. You've been doing this a long time. Well, I also spend a lot of time doing it myself. I love to feel the way horses move. You got to understand how horses adjust to riders and vice versa.
Yeah.
And, you can learn to do it as an observer, but I think it's so much more important. And the people whose art I resonate to, they're horseback a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. That's a common theme I've heard from artists who are painting either horses or natural animals, wildlife.
You got to be around.
You got to be out there. I mean, even somebody's saying they've done taxidermy. Somebody paints elk.
Absolutely.
And it just it shows. How long have you been meditating?
I got introduced to meditation about 2009.
Got it.
And I don't know how technically well I do it.
Yeah.
And but I was introduced, and I have a mantra. And
is it transcendental meditation, kind of?
Kind of. I mean, I do follow a mantra to get started, but it's just an amazing opportunity to just shush.
It is.
And you do this?
I do. Yeah. It's been. I'd say it's one of the most important things I've ever done.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's amazing.
No doubt.
And it's hard. I mean, it's not easy, and it's not. If I can clear my mind for half a second, that's a big victory. It's like, it's like really hardcore training for your brain.
Right.
But I found it one of the most challenging things I've ever done, but also one of the most beneficial things.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And people often say, well, isn't fishing or riding meditation for you? And there are meditative qualities to it. But the thing I love about riding is you got to be present.
You do.
Because if you're not present, the dude on whose back you are perched is going to figure it out like that.
Yeah, real quick.
And, if you've been around horses long enough, even the best horse, the most trusted pal, you can get a sticky wicket quick.
Yeah, people say that
present.
To me about I do a lot of running, and they say, well, isn't running meditation? I mean, it can be, but there's nothing harder than just sitting down and trying to focus on your breath.
Oh, man.
And for anybody who thinks
and
otherwise, only your breath. Yeah. I mean, it's so.
You know who's interesting about that? Have you ever heard Laird Hamilton talk about it? You know who Laird Hamilton is?
Yeah, the surfer. Yeah,
yeah, the water guru. He talks about his number one training focus is breathing and being conscious with breathing.
Sure.
And it is not easy.
It's not.
But it's really important.
How has that changed your either art or approach to art?
I think it's grown me up a little bit, calmed me down. I'm real impulsive. Like I said, I've got a real short attention span. And I'm a firm believer that the impulse is the art. And so it's easy to get carried away with that if you're not careful. And so it's just been a big part of centering me, trying to have me be here and now in everything I do. Yeah. Couldn't be more important than with horses.
Sure.
Fishing. And I'm not really all that much of a fisherman, to be honest. I mean, I love to do it, but I'm a pretty big hack, actually.
Yeah, that's how I am.
But I get out there a lot, and I want to be conscious and present, not just to catch, but to, I love to cast. I just love it. It feels amazing. And that's what I endeavor to paint when I paint fishing. It's just the motion. When people see what I do fishing work, and I do my fishing work, and they say, man, that's sure what it feels like, that's the highest compliment I can get. Mm-hmm. Like, wow, you're kidding. I conveyed the feeling?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I didn't know I could do that. So,
well, and that reminds me of a story your brother told me about you with the fishing and the art. And I'll let you tell a story, but something about you being in South America in a fishing lodge, and again you got loose on the wall.
Yeah.
So what's the story?
Me and
there?
walls.
Yeah.
My poor dad. He's been gone 6 years now, but he was wrong. It does pay to drink too much beer and draw on the wall. You got all of it right. I was at a great lodge, maybe one of the best fishing experiences I've ever had, and I've had several times. It's a terrific lodge down in southern Chubut province of Argentina. It's called Las Pampas Lodge. And this great crew of local Argentines own it and run it, and co-own it and run it. And best group of guides I've ever fished with. And I haven't fished everywhere in the world, but I've been a lot of places. Yeah. These guys stand out. But the course of a week, they find out what I do, and they kind of start pushing me like, paint us something. And of course, I didn't bring any painter brushes or anything. So we kind of patched together a plan. We buy some paint at the only hardware store in a 1,000-mile radius. And we build some brushes. Literally, we were wiring together bristles from something else and Q-tips. And so I get a construction pencil, a contractor's pencil, and they just say, here, paint on this wall. Little did they know that was familiar turf. And I did 2 scenes of, they were really about the guides, because the guides at this lodge, from the head guide down, are the best part about it. They're just phenomenal guys. They're amazing fishermen and women. And so I did a scene of a guide, 2 guides with a client fishing. You just got the client's focused down his rod, and the guides are pointing, another guide's sitting with a net waiting. And this is the stuff we've been doing with these guys all week. And the next night they're like, otra, I have to do it again. So I do the similar scene, 2 guides and a client coming in the direction. And the last stroke was the 2 rods connect as one line.
Oh, cool.
And they break into like the soccer chant. They're totally stoked. It was really fun. They couldn't have made me feel more welcome and appreciate the energy they gave back. And then, when I'm back in the States, and I get an email like 2 weeks later from a guy who I don't know, and it says, is this you? It's a picture of the piece. And it's the head of fly fishing for Patagonia.
Wow.
And he says, we got a project coming up there. We're doing a movie about the fishery in Argentina. It's a really cool movie. It's called Finding Fontanalis.
Is it out? Is it online
It's out.
now?
It's been out for a couple of years. And Finding Fontanalis is about this fishery, and it's a conservation story, largely, which is, wow, cool. So I said, absolutely. Where do I sign up? And it was a really fun project. And just that whole experience just kind of relit the fire. I mean, I've been fishing since I was a kid, but I really got into it after college, and I did it really seriously for a few years. I was kind of fading. I was busy, got kids, hadn't fished a lot. But this really relit the fire. And then Patagonia said, let's do a T-shirt. I'm like, okay. And simultaneously, I've been doing stuff with Fish Pond.
And I've got one of your hats.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Very cool.
Very cool.
Send you home with another one.
Oh, sweet. Gear.
And the Fish Pond story is much more intimate to home. Their founder lives 2 drainages down up at the ranch. Okay. And the local Denver partners are old family friends. Yep. So it's really, it's a much more friendship-based thing. And, Ben Kurtz from Fish Pond just called one day and said, hey, let's do something. I said, okay.
They make great gear.
They do. They make great gear. And Johnny Lecoq, who started that company, is a terrific guy, a really talented artist, photographer in his own right. Had a lot of good business successes. And the Kurtz boys are terrific, twin brothers. And it's a very local to me. They used to be headquartered. I mean, they technically still are headquartered in Silverthorne, Colorado, and our ranch is just 16 miles north. Sure. But then their base of ops and their distribution centers right here in Denver. And So that's not an official deal. We don't have a contract. We don't have anything going other than they say, hey, let's try something else. What I really like about that gig and Patagonia, those companies are real focused on giving back. And so, you buy these goods they've made largely in Fish Pond's case, and certainly Patagonia, they're using recycled material.
Sure.
And a portion of the proceeds go to a conservation group. So my very first hat and T-shirt for Fish Pond went to Save the Colorado. And we just did something for the Bonefish Tarpon Trust. So, $1.50 out of every hat they sell goes to these entities. And I couldn't be more tickled with that.
Well, I've never met the Fish Pond people, but they've sponsored some of the Cattlemen's Land Trust events that I've been to. And so it's neat how, they say in business after a while you attract the type of people you attract to business with are people like you, and it seems like you've done that, especially with the conservation side of things. These companies that value that have been drawn to your work. So can you talk a little bit about your commitment to conservation? Because I know every conservation event I go to, you've been generous enough. I feel like every event there's something that you've donated, some of your art. Yeah. So why is that such an important thing for you?
Well, conservation has certainly been a big part of my family's history. My mom and dad very, very focused on conservation, and I always have to clarify for myself. We're talking about land conservation first and foremost. Here in the West, that's an easy direction to put the conversation, because land conservation here is important. Those of us who believe it's important feel it's important to leave some of these beautiful open places for the next generation. But largely for me, it also means conservation means preservation. And I'm equally as interested in preserving the culture of that land as I am of the land.
Yeah.
And so I didn't set out in any way to be involved in conservation. Woody certainly has been very involved, and like I said, a lot of my family members. But it just kind of happened, and I started to realize these overlaps, right? Recreation, ranching have a lot of common overlap uses of the land. But I'm really intrigued with the idea when you put a circle on a map around a piece of open space and you say, we're not going to let anything happen to this. If we can help it, and we're gonna keep this the way maybe it wants to be, right? You're also saying we're gonna keep whatever culture let's face it, humans touch the world.
Yeah, we're here.
There's no part of this globe that doesn't feel our touch. So even when we've said this is special and we're protecting, look at the national parks. They're some of the most frequented pieces of ground on the planet. So there is a human culture that goes with that. So when you set something aside to be as close to its indigenous self as you can be, you're also preserving whatever it is we as humans do there. It's too late. This is never going back to the bison. We get it.
Yeah.
But that protection of culture is just as big a part of conservation, in my opinion.
I agree with you, and that's why I've been so focused in on helping out working with the Cattlemen's Land Trust. Is because they focus on kind of all three. They focus on the big open landscapes, they focus on the people, and by doing that, they focus, it helps the wildlife as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some of the great conservation efforts are just wildlife driven. Trout Unlimited and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and all these groups. And my associations to date with particular groups have really been more about my friendships and my acquaintances than anything. And, it's like, pick your crisis. Where in the world do you want to focus your energy? It's really helpful to have your friends show up and say, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like the little land preserve here in my little community here. We're going to do this. Would you help? Sure.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky that way. We can't just write a big old check, but I can give some work that can hopefully raise some money.
Well, and I think writing a check is great, but I think by when you do this work, it also it's inspiring at the same time, and it paints this it paints this great picture of the West that kind of inspires people and gets people fired up and makes them love it even more.
I hope so.
So I think
that's good to hear.
It helps in two ways at least.
Well, that's nice.
We're already at like almost 50 minutes, which is crazy. Can I just hang out in here all day and ask you questions?
As long as you want. Absolutely.
So there are a few questions I've been asking everybody I've interviewed, and it's been cool to compare the answers. Are there any books that you recommend to a lot of people or have given a lot of people, and they can be about the American West or just books that you love that have influenced your life and work?
Wow. Yeah. Where do you start? Well, about the West, There's a few that they killed me, and if you want my opinion, everyone out here should read Cadillac Desert.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
And luckily I know they update it, keep us surprised of the changes, but if you haven't read that and you love the West, do it quick.
Yes.
In a lot of respects, it's too late.
Unfortunately,
a lot of the stuff he outlined years and years ago has already happened. But it's still an important book.
It'll immediately change the way you see stuff. Like what we were talking about before we started recording about people watering grass.
Yeah.
It changed. I never thought about that.
Cadillac Deserts is important. And so it actually, Legacy of Conquest, Patty Limerick's book, have you read that?
I know of it, but I've not read it.
It's equal. And I mean, you got to read it. It's like Blood and Thunder.
Oh, that's so good.
Right?
That one is so good.
Now they're coming to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to read Blood and Thunder.
Yes.
You got to read The Miracle Mile.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going to be here and you're going to live this life, there's some things you should know. You also ought to read Beyond the 100th Meridian.
That's a good one. That goes well with Cadillac Desert.
For that matter, I don't know why I find it to be, but Angle of Repose is one of my favorites.
I've heard that you're probably you're the first person to mention. I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and people were saying that was their favorite, and you're the first one to mention
it. It's not singularly a Western book, but it's an amazing book.
Yeah, I need to read. I have not read it.
If you're a fisherman and you haven't read David James Duncan, The River Why, get on it.
Yeah,
that book is hilarious and so poignant.
This is awesome. This is why.
Did you read Empire of the Summer Moon?
Yes.
That's a killer.
Very good.
That's a killer.
That one, I read that right after Blood and Thunder.
Me too.
And then I've got another one lined up about, I think it's about Crazy Horse.
Oh.
And somebody told me it's equivalent. It's as good as Empire of the Summer Moon.
Nice.
So we'll see. I'll let you know.
It's not S.C. Gwynn, is it? Sam
No,
Raimi?
it is not. I just don't understand how those guys write those books. Like, how do you research that?
I don't know.
Much
I'm
less
so
write.
glad they do.
Yeah, I mean they are.
Which is funny. It makes it sound like I'm a nonfiction junkie, which I really wouldn't have told you I was. But and I know a lot of your people say this. Anything by Cormac McCarthy's fun to read.
Yeah.
The darker from him, the more I like it.
Yeah, he can paint it dark, man.
Yeah. Blood Meridian and The Road are two of the best, and they are not pretty. They're dark.
They really are.
But they're great.
That's like reading poetry, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of, I don't know how those guys write Blood and Thunder. I don't know how that guy writes a single paragraph.
Yeah.
Because just a paragraph, I would think, would take a normal person a year to write.
Yeah, right.
It's so artistic.
Yeah.
Well, those are great. I'll put links to everything. Do you have any favorite documentaries or films?
Oh, films? Documentaries, that's tricky. My favorite movie might be Chinatown.
Yes.
You seen Chinatown?
Yes, I have.
There's a Western story
it
for
is.
you. My most recent favorite Western is tied for two. I loved Blackthorn.
I haven't seen that.
It's a good one. Sam Shepard.
Okay.
As an elder Butch Cassidy living in Bolivia. Really good. Very well done. And South America's the star. It's beautifully made. The Three Burials of Melquiades Estrada. Have you seen that? That's
No.
Tommy Lee Jones's. I think it was his directorial debut.
Cool.
That's as good a modern Western as there is. So, I mean, I guess I do like, John Wayne and the Cowboys was one of my favorites as a kid. Documentaries, I just saw the one about Levon Helm, the drummer from the band.
Oh, okay.
I forget what it's called, but it is great, and what a character he was.
Cool.
So I don't know. I spin a lot of movies, late night background, just listening.
Do you really?
Yeah, and I have to turn them off if I find I'm watching them too much. But if like the Levon Helm, I could listen. You could hear the story, you could hear him talk, and take it all in. So there's a partial list anyway.
So you ride horses, you paint, you fish. Is there anything surprising you do? Something maybe weird or that listeners would think is not... Like, I wouldn't have thought he would do that. Like, you knit?
I don't knit. I would like to. I don't knit. That's really funny. What do I do that people don't know about? Well, you know what? I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of boring.
No, you're definitely not boring.
I like to play Yahtzee. Is that strange?
Yeah,
I love to play
played that
Yahtzee.
since I was a
It's a
kid.
riot.
I remember that game.
You wanna take someone on in Yahtzee? I'm your guy. I love it.
Yeah,
and I'm terrible at it, but it's fun.
Well, then I'll have a chance. Yeah, I remember that from a kid. I've forgotten about it.
Oh, and I'm a horrible poker player. How about that?
Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
horrible.
me too.
I'm the worst.
What is the most powerful experience you've ever had in the outdoors? And powerful could mean scary, cool, crazy, memorable? Just is there a certain experience you had that you think back and you're like, man, that was super cool?
Well, I think of two. Two are popping to mind. I'll keep one of them super short. When I was 17, I was a wrangler on a guest ranch in Montana. And we got a ride up in the crazy mountains with another wrangler who was a terrific guy and a bunch of guests. And we're way up high above timberline in a terrible lightning storm. Mm-hmm. And we actually ended up pulling bridles and turning horses loose and riding it out, hunched down. And this guy had been around long enough to know, get out in the open, squat down, don't lie down. I mean, then the lightning is just popping. The thing that really, really I remember, and I actually did a piece recently called No Time for High Ground. It shows a guy leading horses up in a lightning storm. And that's about as narrative as I get with my work. But what really amazed me about that experience is it was the first time I'd ever been high up on a ridge and heard thunder in the valley below me.
Oh, wow.
And seen lightning flashing below you. Now, that's a humbling experience,
yeah.
Especially when horses are shaking their heads because of the metal in their mouths and the energy you can feel in your temples.
Buzzing a little bit.
Bad.
Yeah.
But more recently, I had a great opportunity to be a fellow at the Thatcher School in California. Mm-hmm. Amazing school with a horse program, probably unparalleled horse program. All first-year incoming students are given a horse, no exceptions. And you take care of it, and you learn to ride, and you learn to be a part of that whole system. You have to do it. So I got to go out there for that. A great friend teaches there. Two great friends teach there. And I was riding with this friend of mine and in the program out with kids and every day. And we rode into town to get an ice cream cone, riding through avocado orchards. And one afternoon we got up on this ridge and the light was gorgeous just before dark. And something in my chest just cracked open. And I think it was one of my first real tastes of just total gratitude and joy.
Cool.
And that was pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
Riding a nice horse in a nice place with a great friend, like, wow, boom.
That's pretty
It
cool.
hit me, and I was, 40 years old. Better late than never, I guess.
That's right. Where is your favorite location in the West? That's a hard question. But is there a certain place? It could be a town, your family's ranch, a certain stretch of river?
Yeah, all of the above. The ranch is pretty special.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad picked it out, and it's a great choice, and they've worked real hard, and it's a beautiful place. A lot of pieces of water that are special. But I've become such a sucker for big open ground on horseback. It's so rare that we get to be someplace really vast. Mm-hmm. And you can be 100 people with me, but just the sense of a big open place. And whatever's coming at you out of the sky is what's coming. Mm-hmm. And it's between you and your horse that you're going to get from A to B. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. Increasingly, and it's we've got all these friendships with big ranches. I've been incredibly lucky to go get to see some of these places. That any place where you can be out in big open country on a good horse, that wins.
It's humbling. I was just in eastern Montana last week, and the landscape there it's almost disorienting.
It can be. Well, and it's such a neat change of pace from our day to day, right? Is. To go through a big landscape, and I mean all the way through it, at the pace of a horse, mm-hmm. it just slows you down. You can't help it. Even if you're jogging that horse for 16 miles.
It's kind of in our DNA to do that. I think it pulls something out of our DNA that's been there for 20,000 years.
Absolutely. Walking around on the planet a lot longer than we've been flying around on it.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
That's right now, anywhere I get a chance to do that, that's the most special.
Cool. Next to last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Go to medical school. No, I'm kidding. I had a great teacher and friend and mentor, Ray Turner. He's one of the finest figurative painters, really just all-around painters in America. And Ray once challenged me to learn the difference between the precious and the essential. Mm-hmm. And he followed it up by saying, make every aspect of every painting essential. But that first bell ringing of, wait a minute, the precious versus the essential, that was huge.
Sure.
Really huge. I try to listen to that today. It's written on the wall around here somewhere.
Cool. Yeah, I need to read these quotes. So last question, if you could make a request of the people listening to this podcast, and it's people who love the American West in one way or the other, like you through art, some people are professional athletes, just conservationists, ranchers. The people who are listening to this love the West. If you could ask a favor of them or give them some advice, is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, I would never go so far as to imagine that I could give anyone advice, but It's a simple thing I sign off with my kids when I drop them off at school, and I say, choose to be happy, go easy on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I think in the question you're asking, that's what I would try to ask people to do, and it's certainly something I try to do every day, is be super grateful and find whatever joy you can in what we've got. And then let's go easy on it. Let's take care of it and ourselves and our cultures, whether we're artists or ranchers or lawyers or bottle washers, I don't care. Let's be good to ourselves in our home, because it's magic. It's special. It's all we got.
Can't beat that. So how can people connect with you? How can people find you online?
Website, DukeBeardsleyStudio.com. We've got a phone number on there. Give us a call. Shoot an email. Della will make sure you get responded to. Just find us, and visit Altamira. If you're in either Jackson or Scottsdale, you'll see what I'm doing. And like you mentioned, I try to be involved with anything I can do to help with certain causes. So if you hear we're at a fundraiser and giving stuff away, and if you're in a position to support the cause, we appreciate it.
Awesome.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. It's been fun.
Hey, it's Ed again. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, and thanks for listening to that particular episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Before you go, I've got 3 quick things. Number 1, if you like the podcast, please do me a huge favor. Either pass it along to a friend who may be interested, share it on your social media, or go to iTunes and give it a 5-star review. All those things would mean a lot to me, and they would really help to spread the word about the podcast. Number 2, if you've listened to many of these episodes, you know that I love reading and I love talking about books. Every other month, I send out a quick email with a few books that I've recently read and highly recommend. The subjects are varied, but they're pretty much all nonfiction with an emphasis on history, biographies, adventure narratives, and topics related to the American West. There are no sales pitches for ranches, no spam, no other kind of nonsense, just books. So if you'd like to sign up for the list, head to Mountain and Prairie/reading, or just go to Mountain and Prairie and there's a massive tab at the top that says book recommendations. Click on it. There are a ton of good books that I've read. Some of the old email lists are on there. You can go crazy. There are a lot of books. And finally, if you know anyone I should interview for the podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. All my contact info is at mountainandprairie.com, and I'm on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to have some recommendations and suggestions of interesting people I should meet. All right, that's it. Thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.